Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into something absolutely mind-bending. We're exploring the divine refinement. It's this incredibly fascinating theoretical framework by author Michael Davey, and it ambitiously blends cosmology, advanced physics, and deep spirituality all into one unified system of existence. I mean, if you've ever wondered how the literal building blocks of the universe might actually connect to the human soul, you are going to love the journey we're taking today.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. When you look up at the night sky, what do you actually see? You probably see, endless blackness, scattered stars, maybe the distant hint of a galaxy if you're lucky enough to be far away from city lights. But Davy's theory points out something profound that really anchors this whole idea. When you look down at the ground, you're actually seeing the exact same universe, just from a much more familiar angle. We don't exist underneath the universe, we're an active physical component of it.
And this cosmic tapestry really captures the core of that premise. It's like a giant puzzle. Often, because our immediate earthly surroundings are just so familiar to us, we kind of separate the wonder of the cosmos from ourselves, right? As if our daily life is somehow less amazing than a supernova. Davis' framework argues that humanity consistently makes this mistake of separating ourselves from the ultimate source of creation. We place the divine way up high, far above us. But if we are made in that divine image, we're literally inseparable from the universe. The heavens, the earth, the physical matter, the spiritual essence, it's all one continuous fabric.
Okay, so how does this physical and spiritual connection actually work? Well, Michael Davey uses a pretty wild scientific mechanism to explain it. Imagine, for a second, what would happen if you were to enter a black hole? Scientifically speaking, that immense gravity would completely break down your particles. It would deconstruct you all the way down to the point where your underlying matter is completely indistinguishable from the matter of a rock, or a tree, or a distant star. You are stripped down to pure universal matter. And then, in Davy's theoretical model, once you're broken down to that purest form, boom, you are shot out at light speed to some faraway destination in the cosmos.
And here is the absolute anchor of the entire theory. Davy states, this is because our data can't be deleted. In physics, there's this fundamental rule that information simply can't be destroyed. Well, the divine refinement theory applies that exact rule directly to the human spirit. It views our souls as the ultimate cosmic data. So while a black hole might deconstruct your physical body into raw matter, your fundamental data, the literal essence of who you are, is mathematically and spiritually impossible to just throw away. It has to go somewhere.
So where does it go? Davy uses this incredibly vivid metaphor that I just love. He says, think of a water balloon that is totally full of tiny other water balloons, and then imagine smashing it on the ground. When that undeletable data, your unrefined soul, is broken down, it doesn't just neatly drop into one single place. No, it shatters. It scatters all across the cosmic board. The essence of a single soul disperses into countless fragments, almost like the skin cells, blood cells, and brain cells of the universe itself, just scattered across space and time.
Which brings us to the actual definition of divine refinement. It is exactly this controlled, eternal process. It's the long journey of those unrefined, scattered soul fragments undergoing continuous formation over massive, unimaginable periods of time. And the goal here? To eventually restructure and evolve into the foundational elements of existence. We're talking about becoming rocks, living beings, or even water. The framework suggests that the sheer amount of time it has taken for our world to reach its current state of perfect harmony is literal evidence of this process. We didn't just randomly happen to exist, we are actively being refined.
Now, Michael Davey created this beautiful spiral tree of life to illustrate that cyclical journey. If you follow the spiral upwards, you can see how souls cycle through different planes of existence as they get refined. It is definitely not a straight line, it's a cyclical, evolutionary climb. Those scattered water balloons we talked about, they slowly work their way through fiery elemental stages, then through earthly biological forms, and finally up into higher spiritual planes. Every single layer is a stage of the universe processing that indestructible spiritual data until it reaches total harmony.
But to really understand the forces driving this continuous spiral, we have to look at Davey's diamond framework. Think of this as the schematic for the actual machinery of divine refinement. It's not just a philosophical concept. The theory categorizes the exact physical forces, the emotional states, and the elemental building blocks that constantly act upon the soul. The diamond maps out 4 distinct poles that are always pulling and pushing on matter and spirit to keep this refinement process going endlessly.
Let's break down those 4 poles really quick so you can see how it all connects.
Up at the top, we have entities. These are your physical and biological constructs, things like planets, metals, cells, living matter. Over on the left are emergents, which fascinatingly map to our emotional states, like pain, fear, joy, and reflection. On the right, we have energies, the fundamental forces of physics, so gravity, radiation, electromagnetism. And finally, down at the bottom is Erebos. That represents the deep primordial quantum states, like dark matter and cosmic inflation. According to Davy, our eternal data is constantly interacting with all four of these poles at the exact same time.
Now you might be wondering, why? Why does the universe need to put souls through this intense, grueling process of scattering and refining? Well, Davy points to a biological parallel that makes total sense: the human immune system. Just as your immune system fights off infections to protect your body, the theory posits that the cosmic system literally consumes competition and processes matter to create an ultimate divine protector. The idea is that in a multiverse full of dangerous universes, our universe is surviving by consuming threats and climbing the ladder. It's building up its own divine defenses on a macro scale.
And we can actually see this immune-like system operating right in our own solar neighborhood. Davy visualizes this process at a planetary scale. He suggests that unrefined souls start as these intense solar flares blasted out from a star. From there, they slowly break down sequentially as they travel outward into space. And get this, he points to the planet Mercury. Being the closest planet to the Sun, Mercury actually fits perfectly as the very first physical byproduct of this solar flare breakdown. It's the first tangible physical result of a blasted soul beginning its long journey of refinement.
As that matter travels further outward and continuously refines, it creates what science calls cosmic webbing. Through Davy's lens, this cosmic webbing isn't just a bunch of dead gas and space dust, it's a living, repeating spiritual process of returning and restructuring. And the ultimate culmination of this stage? The nebula. The theory holds that those breathtaking, massive clouds of glowing cosmic gas, the nebulae, are actually the visual representation of a fully refined soul. How incredible is that?
So, let's put this all together on an awe-inspiring timeline of a soul's life cycle. At year 0, human death occurs. But remember, the data cannot be deleted. So over the next years and decades, that data breaks down and becomes integrated right back into terrestrial nature, like plant life. Then, millennia later, as the Earth and solar system evolve, that refined energy is set free into the cosmos, eventually forming a star or a nebula. Finally, eons later, once that energy is fully controlled and refined, it becomes the exact gravitational force needed to form a brand new planet, or maybe even a brand new universe.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to ponder. Michael Davy's Divine Refinement paints a picture of a universe where absolutely nothing is wasted. Science and spirit are just two sides of the exact same cosmic coin. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If your essential data, your spirit, is mathematically impossible to delete, what part of the universe are you going to become next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep looking up and down at the stars.